Unveiling 3 sinister spine-chilling true nighttime horrors, You Believe Volume 2 exposed. Lisa's heart raced as the shadows curled around her darkened suburban street. A soft rustle outside her window sent spikes of ice coursing through her veins. Was it just the wind? Or something far more sinister lurking beyond the peeling paint of her home? Just last week, the air was heavy with laughter at the playground. But now it felt haunted, echoing with whispers of missing families, a community gripped by an invisible terror. Every creak of the floorboards felt excruciatingly loud, an ominous symphony mirroring her own spiraling anxiety. She had learned to dread the night, the familiar routines marred by increasingly unsettling events. Ever since her ex-husband walked out, her courage was fading, replaced by an all-consuming fear. Shadows creeping closer each night only intensified her vulnerability. The rusting uplands of their neighborhood had never felt so ominous before. As Lisa prepared for another night shift at the hospital, an icy finger crawled down her spine. It was the odd phone calls from Mr. Graves, the neighbor whose friendly demeanor felt strangely predatory now. His voice echoed in her mind, murmuring vague warnings about wandering too far from the beaten path. "Mind where you tread," he had said, a smile betraying something darker beneath the surface. Once, she brushed it off. Now, each word settled like poison in her gut. Before she could shake it off, a notification dinged on her phone. A text from Sophie's school yanked her attention. A sudden increase in missing children. Panic swept through her. This wasn't just paranoia. She was living in a waking nightmare. Something unfathomable was festering in their once innocent neighborhood. The police dismissed her fears, attributing them to stress. Was she losing her grip? Or just becoming aware of the darkness that had always been lurking? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each passing evening, Lisa felt the grip of dread tighten. After a particularly grueling shift, she arrived home to the flickering light of her porch. There was Mr. Graves, lurking in a friendly facade as he raked leaves in his perfectly manicured yard. The cheerful smile that twisted his lips felt hostile, and Lisa's heart raced as she approached, a dark curiosity pulling her forward. "Lisa," he said too cheerfully, "just thought I'd remind you. Not everyone is who they seem." The chill in his eyes unnerved her. That same night, alone in bed, she searched through disturbing folklore tied to the town tales of children whispered away in shadows. One legend stood out, whispering of ancient rituals that marked certain homes as sacred. Each tale reeled her in deeper, her heart thumping hard against her ribs. This was not just folklore, it was becoming her reality, each story pulling Sophie closer to danger. The next day, unease twisted deep within her as Sophie spoke excitedly about her new friend's figures only visible to her. Lisa felt a creeping horror, her instincts screaming with alarm. Was her baby trying to warn her? As the neighborhood whispered in darkness, Lisa was left frantically questioning what was true and what was imagined. The streets had never felt more alive, yet held a canceled threat. The storm clouds of panic gathered as she wondered, with mounting dread, was there really a predator lurking, watching, waiting for its moment to strike? Lisa tossed and turned, her mind replaying the horrifying tales she had read. Her heart thundered in her ears, drowning out the usual night sounds: a train whistle, distant laughter. Now it all felt sinister. A creak echoed from the floor below, sharp and violent, and her blood ran cold. Summoning courage she didn't feel, Lisa sat up, straining to hear. The house felt like it was breathing. Something was in there with her. She grabbed her phone, that tiny light cutting through her thickening dread. Shadows flickered at the edges of her vision, taunting her, but it was only the darkness responding to her fear. The night dragged on, each moment heavy with the weight of terror. When she finally drifted into a restless sleep, Nightmares consumed her, swirling images of clinging darkness and unseen eyes. She woke with a start to a soft, insistent tapping at her window. Her heart sank. Sophie. She had fallen asleep waiting for her daughter to come home from her friend's house. Racing instincts kicked in, and she flung off her covers, darting to the window. But it was only the branches swaying in the wind, contorting into grotesque shapes. Shakily, she exhaled. Relief didn't last long. The tapping grew louder, almost demanding. Came from the back door. Panic clawed at her throat. Who was out there? There was no second-guessing, no pausing to think. She tiptoed toward the door, every creak a piercing bell in the thick silence. Peering through the peephole, she saw nothing. Just darkness, a sheet of ink blanketing the world outside. Sweat trickled down her spine, and with trembling hands, she unlocked the door. "Who's there?" she called, hoping to hear a familiar voice. Instead, a low chuckle reverberated through the night. Lisa's blood chilled. The sound warped and echoed like it came from nowhere yet everywhere at once. Heart racing, she shoved the door open, but the yard was empty. Just an expanse of shadow. Suddenly, a whisper floated on the wind. "Help us," distorted and chilling. It sent shivers racing down her spine. It was a child's voice and yet twisted, like something in agony. She stepped back, slamming the door shut, heart hammering against her ribcage. Was it Sophie? She pressed her palm to the door, fighting the terror rising inside her. Hours crept by, instilling a grip of waking dread. Lisa couldn't shake the voice from her mind. Sleep refused to claim her as she paced the house, feeling like a prisoner in her own skin. Finally, she crept into Sophie's room, the soft light of a night lamp casting a gentle glow over her little girl, blissfully unaware. But then Lisa noticed something. The window was slightly ajar, the curtain billowing in the night air. A chill swept through her. Had she left it open? She scoffed at the idea, reminding herself it was just her imagination. But deep down, a gnawing dread told her something was terribly wrong as dawn broke, and the sunlight bled through the curtains. Lisa felt a fragile sense of calm. She slipped back to her bedroom, thinking of investigating the barricade of fear that now consumed her home. When she stumbled upon it, a small, crumpled piece of paper slipped under the door. A note written in a child's scrawled handwriting. "Come play with us." Lisa's pulse quickened, a dull thud echoing in her temples. Fear coursed through her once more. The world outside lost its warmth, becoming an unwelcoming void. Could this be another trick of her mind? Or was it really Sophie's voice she had heard in the dark? With new resolve, she wrestled her mounting fear and grabbed her phone, flipping through her contacts for the help she desperately needed. But before she could dial, the tap-tap-tap of fingers on glass echoed through the quiet. At that moment, something shifted, and she realized she wasn't alone. What loomed outside her window was no longer just a fantasy. Something ancient, something hungry, was waiting for her to make a choice. What would she do next? Would she dare to open that door once more? Lisa's heart thundered in her chest as she stood frozen, staring at the window. Shadows danced beyond the glass, playing tricks on her mind, but the tapping, it was real. A low thrum of anxiety coursed through her as she fought the impulse to scream. She needed to stay calm. Just a branch, just the wind, she muttered, but uncertainty gnawed at her insides. The note still clutched in her hand felt heavier by the second, suffocating her rational thoughts. "Come play with us." What did it mean? Her thoughts spun. Gathering her nerves, she crept toward the window. Each step felt weighted. She could feel something lurking just beyond the veil, watching, waiting. The night lamp flickered as if it sensed her turmoil. Lisa gulped down her fear. She had to look. She had to know that as she pulled the curtain aside, a chill swept over her body, wrapping around her shoulders like icy hands. The yard was dark, but there, just out of the reach of the dim glow from the streetlights, stood a figure. A small child, distorted, with hollow eyes that looked past her, straight into her soul. Whatever spark of innocence was once there had been replaced with an unsettling emptiness that made her flesh crawl. Help us, the whisper floated through the air again. It wasn't just one voice now. It was several. A chorus of haunting echoes, pleading from her wildest nightmares. Paralyzed, Lisa pressed her back against the wall, her breath hitching in her throat. She felt an overwhelming urge to flee, but her feet were glued to the floor. Then suddenly, the figure turned, arms outstretched as if inviting her to join. More children appeared, emerging from shadows, stepping closer with sunken faces twisted in a smile that chilled her bones. There seemed to be dozens now, all whispering, all beckoning her. Lisa didn't recognize any of them, but the despair etched on their faces screamed familiarity. Help us, come play. She wanted to bolt, to hide, but her legs felt like lead. What did they want? Did she dare call for help? Could anyone hear her above the whispers? With her heart racing uncontrollably, Lisa stumbled back, searching for a place to hide, but there was nowhere safe, nowhere to escape the gnawing terror brewing inside her. Suddenly, the grin on one child shifted, twisting into something grotesque, revealing sharp teeth. Join us forever, it rasped, and the others echoed in unison, their voices a chilling melody that twisted the air around her. You're not alone, Lisa. Another voice trembled, soaked in sorrow. Lisa's pulse quickened. That voice, it was familiar. Sophie. Where was her daughter? Panic flared, igniting her instincts, and she tore her gaze away from the window, rushing to grab her phone again. She needed to call the police, get help. But as her trembling fingers fumbled, the sharp tapping intensified, reverberating through the house like an urgent heartbeat. Each tap clawed at her sanity, scratching deeper into her skin. A wave of dread hit her. The children outside began to chant her name, a cacophony that seeped through the glass. Lisa, come join us, stay forever, help us. The whispers gnawed away at her composure. She couldn't let them in. She couldn't let that happen to Sophie. And what if they mean you? A voice inside whispered, treacherous and dark. Her breathing quickened, panic fluttering in her chest. Without thinking, she bolted to the door, every instinct screaming at her to flee. What if she opened it? Would they flood in? What if they took Sophie? In a surge of adrenaline, she unlocked the door but hesitated, heart hammering. What if the children outside were only a distraction? Her phone vibrated in her hand, a message. Stay inside. Lisa, do not open the door. It was Sophie's friend. But was it too late? The tap 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 turned into a frenzied banging, and the whispering morphed into a roar. Let us in! Let us in! Lisa threw her back against the door, every nerve ending screaming in terror. Time slipped away as her heart fought the darkness pressing in all around her, closing the distance with sinister intent. What was waiting beyond the door? Would her next choice seal her fate or save her daughter? Just then, a cry pierced the chaos. Mom. It was Sophie's voice, filled with unbridled fear. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. She had to find her. But where was she? The question echoed in her mind as the shadows swirled around her, creeping closer, ready to pull her under. Again she was faced with a choice. Would she answer her daughter's call? Or would she succumb to the darkness waiting for her to slip? The banging escalated, shaking the frame of the door as if something monstrous pressed against it. Each hit echoed in Lisa's mind, drowning her thoughts in sheer panic. Mom! The cry sliced through the chaos outside, not with the whispering pleas of the children, but with a clear tremor of terror. Mom, please! Time stretched, wrapping her in a thick blanket of dread. Was it really Sophie? Or was it another trap? A sick trick played by the shadows lurking just out of sight? The urge to reach for the door fought against her resolve to remain inside, where the whispers couldn't steal her soul. The pounding grew more frantic, rhythmic, as if a life force was battling to break through. Help us! Lisa, the cacophony curled around her, tugging at her sanity. Join us, they were drawing her into their web, a melody resonating through fear and desperation. With shaky hands, she turned towards the door, almost naive to the sinister intentions etched in their childlike voices. Sophie! She shouted, slipping into the abyss of her own worst fears. Her daughter's voice faded in and out, replaced by the malevolent chorus that crept in from every direction. "Mom, I'm scared." The tremors in Sophie's call shoved a fresh wave of courage through Lisa. She had to ignore the voices, that eerie invitation to play. She had to save her daughter. But how? Suddenly, the air around her thickened, felt colder, sharper, suffocating her resolve. A shadow shifted just past the glass, a figure evading the flickering light, and deep, sinister laughter pierced the air. The children had gone silent. All that remained was that dreadful laughter, echoing off the walls like a curse. "Come out and play," a voice cooed. It was melodic and yet venom-soaked, slinking in through the crevices of her mind. Fear blossomed into full-blown terror as she realized the laughter belonged to something old, something hungry. Then her phone buzzed again. Frantic, she grabbed it, breath quickening. Another message from Sophie's friend. "Get away from the door. They want you to open it." Who did she mean? Was the danger outside or inside? Every instinct urged her to break down the door, to throw herself into the storm beyond. But with each second passing, the shadows outside deepened, swirling and transforming into grotesque shapes, each forming a twisted representation of the children. Visions of large, gnarled hands grasped at the shadows, stretching into the light beyond. "Mom!" Sophie's cry fled the storm of eerie laughter, pulling at Lisa with a force that felt like a lifeline. "I need you." She slammed her eyes shut, the painted memories of her daughter sweeping across her mind. The sight of Sophie running through the yard with a smile, carefree and innocent, was quickly tainted by the pulse of terror wrapped tightly around her heart. Each echoing laughter turned her blood ice cold. "Stop it!" she screamed, her voice fierce yet panicked. "Get away!" But silence fell, heavy and oppressive, as darkness brushed against her skin. The absence of sound was worse than the chaos. She dove forward, her hand reaching for the knob, heart racing, breaths quickening. What if this was a way to save her? What if Sophie was out there, hurt and frightened, waiting for her to make the choice that would tear them apart forever? And then, as if summoned by her thought, a deafening crack split the silence. The door jolted, the weight behind it threatening to break free. Heart racing, Lisa hesitated again. But the weight of time bore down on her. She couldn't spend another moment tethered between two worlds. "Mom, please." Whatever was waiting for her on the other side was coming. She clenched her jaw, set her determination like stone, and grasped the cold metal knob. The air crackled with a pressure she could feel in her bones, as if reality itself held its breath. This was it. What waited beyond could either save her or destroy everything she held dear. Then she pulled the door open and the shadows rushed in. What happened next was nothing she could have prepared for. The laughter escalated into a scream, a deafening chorus, echoing with the laughter growing louder. She wasn't sure if she pulled them in or if they pulled her. Was it Sophie who spoke last? Or did the darkness engulf it all? The last thing she felt was the icy touch on her skin, stealing her breath, and then everything dissolved into chaos. What might she discover when the night settles again? Cold tendrils of darkness swallowed Lisa whole, pulling her through an expanse of muted chaos where time seemed to unravel. She felt weightless, as if floating in a void stripped of sound and sight. Her heart raced, each beat echoing in her ears, a desperate reminder she was still alive. But this eerie silence amplified her dread, a haunting promise that something was lurking just beyond her reach. Then the shadows twisted and morphed around her. Faces emerged, contorted in horror, grotesque representations of the children she had once known. They reached out with gnarled fingers, their mouths wide open as if trying to scream, yet no sound escaped. Lisa's breath hitched in her throat. They were trapped, ensnared by their own darkness just as she was. "Mom?" A faint whisper caressed her ears, fragile and full of longing. "Sophie? Was that really her daughter?" Hope sparked, igniting the last embers of her courage. "Where are you?" Lisa called out into the suffocating void. "Please, tell me how to find you." Shadows pressed against her, but she pushed through the oppressive weight, straining against the darkness. "Help us," they echoed, that familiar plea curling around her throat like a noose. Panic pulled her under, drowning her rational thoughts in an ocean of despair. The memories of Sophie's laughter felt far away, and in its place loomed terrifying visions of despair. A sudden flicker of light pierced through the shroud, illuminating a path. Lisa dashed toward it, her heart pounding, each step pulling her deeper into a literal nightmare. As she ran, the shadows twisted behind her, stalking her like ravenous beasts. "Mom, I'm scared." The cry cut through the haze sharper than before. Lisa gritted her teeth. Every ounce of energy surged through her as she sprinted toward the light, her daughter's voice guiding her through the chaos. But the laughter erupted again, wrenching her back. "Join us," it sang, mocking her resolve. Every echo was poisoned with a hatred she could taste like bile in her throat. "Sophie," she screamed, the name venturing into the dark, desperate for a response. Another flicker sparkled ahead, lassoing her focus. It pulsed like a beacon. The laughter faded into a distorted chorus, morphing into sobs of anguish. She stumbled, bracing for the unseen ground. It felt like walking in quicksand, each step dragging her back into the void. She had come too far to lose herself now. Then, a low growl rumbled from beneath her, vibrating through her body. Something was lurking just beneath the surface. Almost instinctively, she dropped to her knees, clawing at the ground, looking for an escape. Suddenly, the ground cracked like ice, splintering beneath her hands. The shadows convulsed, swirling, churning, and in that moment of chaos, she caught a glimpse of Sophie, locked in a cage of dark vines, her frightened eyes wide, glistening with tears. "Mom!" Sophie cried out desperately, but the darkness around her surged angrily. Lisa's heart shattered. Rage bloomed inside her, melding with her fear. "Hold on, sweetie. I'm coming." She barreled forward, grasping the edges of the cage. The vines whipped around her, biting into her flesh, trying to pull her back into the darkness. She gritted her teeth against the pain, yanking harder. "Let her go. You can't keep her." But the shadows shrieked, and the laughter swelled again in crescendo, clawing at her mind, slicing through her thoughts like sharpened knives. The air shimmered with an electric pulse as she battered against the cage, the shadows pressing in like a vice. "Sophie, focus on my voice. I'm right here." Then, like an answering cry from the deep, Sophie held her mother's gaze, her small fingers reaching out, brushing against the cold, dark confines. "I believe in you," she whispered, and that resonated through the chaos like a lifeline. As if brought to life by Sophia's words, the cage shuddered, vines swirling violently, then loosening their grip. But the shadows were furious. Darkness roared, suddenly ferocious, and everything wavered. Would they break free, or was the void hungry for Lisa and her daughter? "Stay with me, Sophie." And then, just as hope flared, the ground beneath them began to crack open, a gaping maw ready to consume them both. What awaited them below? Would courage be enough to defy the abyss, or would they be swallowed by the shadows forever? The ground yawned wide, its jagged edges glistening like the teeth of an ancient beast. Lisa's heart thundered in her chest, a frantic drumbeat drowning out all reason. She felt the strong pull of the gaping maw, the hungry darkness pulling at her legs with icy fingers. "Mom!" Sophie's voice was drowned in the rumble of terror, but it lit a fire within Lisa. "I want to let go," she yelled, bracing herself against the encroaching void, muscles straining as she pulled against the vines. The darkness screeched, a guttural sound that rattled her bones. Shadows swirled, angry and relentless, trying to tear them apart. With a surge of defiance, Lisa grasped the edge of the cage, digging her nails into the rough bark of the twisted vines. "Sophie!" Lisa screamed again, knowing that fear could overpower even hope. "Just hold on." Sophie's eyes shone, wide and pleading, filled with both fear and determination. I'm trying." Her small hands trembled, reaching through the web of darkness, connected to her mother by sheer will alone. Suddenly, a chilling voice echoed from the abyss. "You cannot save her, Mother. She belongs to the shadows." Shadows surged forward, engulfing the sound, and Lisa staggered back, feeling despair clawing at her throat. "No!" she yelled, heart racing. "You don't get to take her." Struggling to breathe amid the damp air, she frantically pulled against the entangling vines. "I won T let you win. Sophie will break free, together." The laughter returned, twisted and malicious, a chorus from the depths mocking their plight. The shadows flickered, morphing into faces she recognized, echoes of the children lost to darkness. Their mouths open in silent screams of terror. Instinct kicked in. She needed to act. Lisa took a deep breath, focusing her thoughts. "Sophie, listen to my voice. We're stronger than they are." The vines tightened, cutting deeper into her skin, but she fought through the pain, every ounce of her willpower igniting. "Remember our game? We said we could conquer anything, right? We have to believe that." A tremor ran through the cage, the vines curling like snakes, trying to wrap tighter. But then, just as suddenly, a flicker of light shone again, illuminating Sophie's small face. "I believe in us, Mom," Sophie shouted back, her confidence building a bridge of hope. The shadows writhed as if struck by her words, and Lisa seized that moment. With a roar of effort, she pulled one final time. The cage shuddered violently, shadows recoiling in surprise. Lisa felt the shift the vines released her, an unexpected freedom surging between them. "Grab my hand." Lisa extended her arm, watching as Sophie surged forward, fingers stretching. But the darkness retaliated. The ground trembled more violently beneath them, cracks spidering outward like a breaking dam. Time slowed as Sophie reached for her, fingertips barely brushing against her mother's. Lisa held her breath, heart racing, willing the shadows to shrink back. Just a little more, the shadows screamed, coiling around Sophie's legs, pulling her back once more. "Mom!" Fear clashed with determination in her voice, echoing through the chaos. Lisa's blood ran cold. "No, Sophie! Fight it! Please!" The ground below them roared alive, and the cracks widened like a cavernous mouth ready to devour them. Then, with a jolt, a massive force surged from beneath, lifting Lisa off her feet. She was dragged into the darkness again, but her eyes locked onto Sophie's. "Hold on. I love you." The darkness cackled and roared, drowning her words as she felt herself being pulled farther down. A flash of fear darted across the fleeting connection between them. Could she reach her daughter in time? The shadows encircled them both. The universe groaned under the weight of their anguish as Lisa began to slip away from sight. She felt Sophie's tiny fingers slipping through her own, the frantic panic coursing through them both, amplifying her heart's final plea. "Keep fighting, Sophie. Don't look back." Then everything imploded into chaotic darkness, swallowing both their cries, the abyss looming still boiling and heaving for a soul to claim what awaited them at the bottom. Would they ever see the light again? Or was this the end of their grim story? The darkness enveloped them, a heavy blanket of despair. Lisa felt her body plummet deeper, the crushing weight of the void pressing against her. Time lost meaning as shadows wrapped around her like serpents, squeezing the breath from her lungs. There was no up, no down, just endless descent into blackness. But her heart hammered on, fueled by a desperate hope. Sophie. The thought of her daughter drove her onwards, igniting her strength even as she slipped further away from the light. Suddenly, a flicker of sensation shot through the dark. It felt like a pulse, a heartbeat, the echo of a presence just beyond reach. "Mom!" Sophia's voice rang out, weak yet resolute. The sound broke through the oppressive silence. Lisa's spirit lifted. She fought against the shadowy misuse of time. If there was still a glimmer of her daughter's voice, then it meant they were still connected. "I'm here, Sophie. Just hold on." "Mom, I'm scared." The shadows quivered at her childish words, vibrating with raw emotion. Something about that fear shared seemed to disturb the darkness, rustling it like wind through trees. If she could just grasp that connection strong enough, perhaps they could turn the tide together. But something darker lurked nearby. A deep, unfamiliar laugh echoed around them. It was a laugh that crawled under her skin, a taunting sound that whispered of inevitable despair. You think you can escape the void? You are already lost. The shadows thickened, pressing into Lisa's very being, their cold winds mixing with a bitter chill that sent shivers through her bones. Panic clawed at her throat, but she forced it down. Instead, she summoned her anger, her defiance pooling into a single mantra. We are stronger than this. With every ounce of resolve, she envisioned Sophie fighting alongside her, a determined warrior against the dark. Sophie, I'm coming. Words surged out, desperate and fierce even as she felt the ground beneath her start to give way, slipping like sand through her fingers. Then, it happened. A flash of light. It cut through the darkness like a knife, revealing fragmented visions of Sophie's small body thrashing against the gripping shadow. Her little face twisted in terror. Mom! She gasped, the light illuminating her wide, terrified eyes. Just a bit more. You can do it. An idea sparked a furious, bright thought. Lisa reached within, bursting forth a scream filled with every ounce of love she had for her daughter. Remember our fire tales? We can be the flames that fight the dark. A strange rustling began, almost like a ripple through the shadows. They recoiled, whispering in a language that sounded like agony. Was it fear? Did her words strike true? The suffocating grip loosened just for a moment, and Lisa felt a rush of warmth against her skin. Feel the flame, Sophie. Ignite it. Remember the warmth of our stories. Is that fire not a flicker, but a burning spark? Sophie clasped her hands together tightly, eyes brightening as she channeled her mother's strength. Shadows hissed and swirled, reacting violently to the light that began to pulse from them, spilling warmth in spite of the cold vacuum around. Mom, I see it. The shadows flared angrily, as if the very essence of hope was poison to them. They locked in on Lisa, their clammy fingers dragging with a fury, gnashing, sharpening into cruel blades that sought to pull them apart. Keep fighting, Lisa screamed, voice carrying through the swirling chaos. Whenever the shadows retreated, they pushed back harder, desperate to reclaim their grip. Lisa and Sophie held on, feeding off the flickering glow, eyes fixed on each other like a beacon amidst the vast nothingness that threatened to swallow them whole. But just as it seemed they might truly break free, the shadows roared back with renewed vigor, and a shuddering tremor marked the ground beneath them. The connection flickered dangerously, and Lisa's heart dropped as an unforgiving shadow closed in. Where will you run, when the dark always waits? The voice was much closer now, booming with malevolence. Was it the creature from the abyss, or something more sinister? Lisa felt the void's grip reclaim her, pulling her back. Mom, don't let go. Sophie's cry echoed through the chaos. Together we can fight. I won't let you go. But the shadows surged, darker and thicker. Lisa's breath quickened as bone-chilling fear enveloped her, pulling at her resolve. Would they find the strength to emerge from this nightmare? Or was there something waiting for them in the depths? Something even worse than the dark? Just when it seemed they might lose the last vestiges of light, a flash pierced the void, a blinding thread of something unrecognizable. In that moment of intensity, did they dare hope? Or were they destined to become another haunting wail swallowed by the abyss? Light exploded around them, stark and blinding. Lisa squinted, shielding her eyes from the radiance. Was this the end, or a cruel trick? Mom, look out! Sophie screamed, her voice trembling with urgency. The shadows writhed violently at the edges of the light, battling against the illumination, their presence seething with anger. Claws of darkness reached for Lisa, stretching and contorting as they sought purchase on the unraveling strands of her hope. The laughter returned, deep and rumbling, drowning out her daughter's cries. Fools! The voice was icy and sharp, slicing through the warm glow. You cling to a memory as a child clings to a ghost. It will destroy you. The light wavered, flickering like a dying flame, and fear surged through Lisa's veins. She could feel the shadows closing in, their clawing whispers dragging at her mind, threatening to smother her resolve. With a fierce growl, she planted her feet. She had to hold on not just for herself, but for Sophie. Remember the tales, Sophie, she shouted, her voice cutting through the chill. What did they teach us about shadows? They retreat from the light. Sophie breathed hard, her tiny shoulders quaking, but Lisa could see a spark in her eyes. They were fighting together now. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if stung by the truth. The ground rumbled ominously. It felt alive, shifting beneath them, and Lisa sensed that they were not just amid shadows, but also at the heartbeat of something ancient and sinister. We are the light, she declared again, rallying every ounce of strength she had. Suddenly, the light brightened, expanding in waves. Lisa felt warmth, a comfort she hadn't known in what felt like eternity. She turned her gaze toward Sophie, who stood firm, deep breaths filling her small frame like an inflatable balloon. A sound like thunder cracked through the air. The shadows began to convulse with fury. Lisa's heart raced. It was a battlefield waged between the light and the dark, both as real as the flesh on her bones. Push back, sweet Sophie. Think of the fire. Think of all we fought against. The shadows howled, the noise echoing like the tortured cries of tormented souls. Lisa steeled herself, focusing her love for her daughter, trying to lock it into a tangible force against the darkness. The resonance of her desperation rang pure, transforming into a shield of blinding light. Together, Lisa and Sophie cried in unison. The glow surged, wrapping around them like a warm blanket. Vines of bright energy snaked outward, piercing the heart of the encroaching shadows. The laughter morphed into howls of pure rage, a sound that reverberated within them, scraping against the marrow of bones. But as the shadows recoiled, a darker figure loomed behind them. Time seemed to slow. An entity emerged, cloaked in yards of raw night, glowing eyes fixed on her and Sophie, hungry and sinister, reflecting a darkness that ate hope whole. A fear gripped Lisa, not just for them but for everyone who had dared to fight deceptions before. Do you believe light can conquer? It hissed, sound sibilant like venom on tongues. I will show you what real despair is. The darkness lunged, a tidal wave that grappled at them while fangs of despair clutched at Lisa's throat. For a heartbeat, it seemed like she was losing Sophie, losing their connection once again. Mom Sophie's voice cracked, but it resonated through the chaos, anchoring Lisa's spirit. Fight! I'm coming for you! Lisa screamed against the darkness. And then, the blinding light ignited in desperate defiance, casting shadows in stark relief. The creature let out an ear-splitting shriek, the kind that could split the world open. But what came next was unexpected. The shadows surged, not backward, but forward. Were they evolving? Lisa strained against the force, gasping. Keep fighting. You mustn't let go. Yet doubt crept into her thoughts, cold and demanding. How could they win against something that seemed so powerful, so inevitable? The shadows morphed into a shape too familiar, echoing her deepest fears, a figure long buried in her mind. Is this truly what we fight? Taunted, its voice mimicking her own. Would you sacrifice everything for a flame destined to flicker out? Lisa felt the cracks of vulnerability beginning to splinter through her. In that split second of hesitation, she caught a glimpse of memory, her daughter hiding beneath the covers, whispering a ghost story. What if the ghosts were the fear taking shape? Let fear die. Let it shatter into the light, she yelled, pushing against the tide. And then a flicker, a glimmer of possibility. But perhaps the question remained. Was this the moment where shadows overcame light? Or would their struggle ignite a revolution that could push back the darkness once and for all? The pulse of darkness ebbed and flowed like an ocean rabid with fury. Lisa felt its weight, thick and suffocating, as the creature loomed above them, a wraith of despair poised to strike. The air crackled with tension, electric and oppressive. She had not just been fighting for their survival, but for the very essence of hope. We are strong. We are light. Sophie's voice rang clear, slicing through the murk like a beacon. Lisa drew strength from that call, heart pounding heavily against her ribs. She refused to bend, to break. But the shadows wriggled closer, curling around her legs like hungry serpents. They whispered her name, 1,000 voices seeping into her mind, weaving doubts so sweet that they sickened her. "Mommy, let us in," they cooed, the familiarity twisting her gut. "Don't you miss the peace of the dark?" "No." She breathed the word like a prayer, stepping forward, as if to retreat would only invite the abyss to swallow her whole. With a fierce glare, she pressed forward, igniting strands of light that sliced through the oppressive darkness. They flared and danced, creating a small oasis amid the chaos. "We are not alone. Fight with me, Sophie. Remember the stories." The shadows recoiled from the blast of brilliance. For a brief moment, she felt hope swell within her, a fleeting warmth coaxing her heart. Then it came again, the entity feeding off her confidence. "Feel the weariness, the weight of despair. You cannot carry this burden, darling Lisa. Let go. I promise there is comfort in surrender." Its words rolled over her like thunder, rattling her spirit. She felt torn, the shadow's promise, a soft lullaby opposing her resolve. "Mom!" Sophie grabbed her hand with a grip that sent chills racing through Lisa. "We can't listen to it." The shadows undulated around them, a roiling sea of darkness, ready to swallow them alive. "What secrets lie buried in your heart? Grief? Regret? The dark can cradle you, let you forget." The murmur sent shivers up her spine. Memories surfaced unbidden, her failures, her losses, the nights spent in desperation and doubt. Each thought dripped like poison. "You know the truth, don't you?" it hissed, circling like a predator. "You're not the hero of this story. You're the one that failed." "Shut up," Lisa screamed, the noise ringing with desperation, as if trying to drown out the cacophony of self-doubt. But as those words echoed, something shifted. The shadows danced larger and stronger, emboldened by Lisa's moment of weakness. She felt the tether to her child weakening, just for a heartbeat, as the darkness pulled at them. "Mommy," Sophie whimpered, casting terrified glances at the swirling dread. "Stay with me," Lisa shouted, willing the light to stay vibrant. She focused entirely on Sophie, the bright spot of her existence, her anchor against the tide of despair. The shadows shrieked, a wretched wail that reverberated through the air like ice through flesh. Despair is inevitable. The light will flicker and die in the face of darkness. Time bent, seconds stretching into painful eternities. Lisa felt cold tendrils of fear creep around her heart, tightening their grip. But she resisted, drawing upon Sophie's courage, forcing the warmth of love to penetrate. "We are not done. Not today." A surge of energy coursed through her. She raised her arms again, light bursting forth, a blooming flower in a field of nettles. The shadows screeched, thrashing wildly against the onslaught. But as they flared, Lisa felt a tremor shake her. Was it the ground? The shadows became liquid, surging in waves, as if contemplating retreat. Doubts raced in her mind. Could they push them back? And then it came, a horrifying thought slicing through her confidence. What if this was just an illusion, mere trickery to buy time? As the shadows shimmered, revealing whispers of familiar faces, blending with the abyss, a new question emerged. What if the light is the true illusion? A smirk from the encroaching darkness shattered her defenses. "Will you risk everything to find out?" Her pulse raced, the stakes higher than ever. Lisa gripped Sophie tighter, standing at the precipice of oblivion. Would she gamble their lives on the flickering hope of the light? Would they face the darkness head-on, or would fear steal away their fight? With a deep breath, she squared her shoulders, her voice low and fierce. "We'll find out together." But the question lingered in the air, sharp and unyielding. In this moment of truth, what awaited them on the other side? The ground continued to tremble under Lisa's feet, but she urged Sophie to stay close, their hands gripping one another tighter. The shadows roared, swirling angrily, threatening to sweep them away into a void that promised to swallow their very essence. "Let us ignite our fire, Sophie," Lisa shouted, her voice resonating with fierce resolve. Sophie nodded, eyes determined despite the fear etched on her young face. Together, they breathed in deeply, letting the warmth of love fill their hearts. "We are light," they echoed, reinforcing their battle cry against the shadow's ominous presence. With each repetition, the energy around them pulsed like a warm heartbeat, shifting the very fabric of darkness. The shadows shrieked, recoiling from their light, a violent tremor rippling through the air, warping their twisted forms. As Lisa and Sophie united their voices, the light intensified, creating a radiant force that pushed against the darkness. Together, Lisa yelled. The shadows hissed, the ghastly sounds intertwining like a dark invocation. "Mom, I can feel it." Sophie's eyes glistened, her inner light matching her mother's determination. "We can push them back." The darkness howled, fierce and relentless. "You think you've won? You're mere sparks against an eternal night," it taunted, the voice echoing with an ancient malice that rattled Lisa's core. With determination surging within her, Lisa's heart ignited with memories moments of pure joy with Sophie. Those cherished family nights, beautiful laughter filling their once blessed home. She visualized those moments vividly, their warmth glowing against the sinister chill. "Remember, Sophie, remember the stories we shared. The light always wins," Sophie shouted back, her courage feeding the flames. And then, in that fray of energy, Lisa felt a connection shift. It was as if the air itself was urging them on. She could sense the shadows twisting in agitation, their forms flickering as they struggled against the encompassing brightness. "Now!" Lisa shouted, channeling every ounce of belief in that singular moment. Together, they surged forward, light exploding outward, illuminating the darkest corners of the void. The warmth brushed against them, a protective shield that thinned the darkness around. Twisted figures began to dissolve in the radiant glow, the promises of despair fading into wisps of smoke. Lisa breathed through the pain. The shadows were shrinking. The painful chorus turned into desperate wails, the ground beneath them stabilizing. Yet something loomed behind like a vortex. The entity, the true embodiment of their fears, emerged, eyes glowing like shards of malevolence. "Foolish mortals, do you think you can escape despair? I am the depths of every fear you've ever had." Its voice roared, resonating with the power to crush them. "Not today." Lisa and Sophie yelled in defiance, surpassing the entity's oppressive weight. Then they found their rhythm, lighting another fire. "We are the dawn, bright and unyielding." The shadows twisted, angry and agonized. But their fury waned, careening backward, retreating from the brilliance that pushed them. Lisa could feel the entity falter, its form weakening under their bond, its power dissipating like shadows at sunrise. "Now, Sophie," Lisa urged, her heart racing as the darkness clawed at the edges of their light. "Hold on to me." As they pressed their combined strength against the darkness, the shadows spun wildly, their shrieks becoming a haunting symphony of fading hope. Before them opened a gateway, a shimmering portal that promised freedom but also risk. "Let us go, Mom," Sophie shouted, courage bubbling in her small voice. As they rushed forward, the entity roared one last time, its essence crumbling into obscurity. "You'll never truly escape. I'll always be part of you." But the darkness warnings fell on deaf ears as they lunged toward the light, hand in hand, pressing through the threshold. Their fears unraveling behind them, a burst of radiant warmth enveloped them, a rush of joy, and finally, they found themselves tumbling into a world soaked in color and vibrancy. They lay on soft grass, sunlight caressing their skin. The whispers of despair were gone. Lisa blinked against the bright sky, tears streaming down her cheeks as she looked down at Sophie, who beamed back at her with bright eyes. "I was so scared," Sophie said, her voice trembling but filled with relief. Lisa pulled her close, wrapping her arms around her daughter, feeling the tightness ease from her chest. "I know, honey, but we did it together. We're safe now." The weight of uncertainty had lifted, and the shadows of darkness that had once lingered were now only a distant memory. They faced the abyss and returned stronger, their bond unbreakable. Feeling the warmth of the day caress them, Lisa smiled. "Let us go home, Sophie." As they stood to walk away, together, a new day awaited bathed in the promise of light. But Lisa understood that true darkness would always try to return. and it was her responsibility to remain vigilant, protect her daughter, and face whatever storms may come with light and courage always standing by her side. The end. And if you made it this far, you need to subscribe now and tap that bell, so you don't miss out on our next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. I want to hear your thoughts and reactions to the ending, so flood the comments section below with your theories. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans know how important it is to support the channel, so do it now.